Well, they're standalone, but they're not, because each one, that's what I was saying before, each one is about women kind of finding themselves at some point in their life and their relationships and their family dynamics. They're all about family, every single one of them. It just depends on how you look at it. I mean, the first one is obviously about her family, her parents. The second one is about these two women that actually become family, but also the families on the either side. And the third one is about a family too, but it's also, they're all about women's issues at different times.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter, the author podcast. You get to meet great authors from around the world. And I'm pulling up my guest website as we're chatting, and it's gorgeous. You got to go there just for that, everybody, and check it out. It's beautiful. You're going to love it. Leslie's here on the show. We're going to be talking about her journey. She's got multiple books for you, lots to talk about. And she has had some interactions with people in the past, some names you probably will be very familiar with when you go to her website. You're like, yeah, Leslie's here. Glad to have her here on the show. Leslie, welcome to Living the Next Chapter.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. You have a very interesting past, Leslie. You've worked with some pretty amazing people, very creative people in the past. Aside from your writing journey as an author, you've been writing and helping people in a different format. For those who haven't met you yet, can you tell us a little bit about your background? There's some pretty interesting names associated to you and what you've done in the past. I'd love to talk about that before we get into your books.
Sure. I started after I graduated college. I went to MTM, which was Mary Tyler Moore Studios, worked there for a while. I worked on Hill Street Blues. I was an assistant. I ran around the studio all the time, and I met a lot of different people. And during that time, I just decided I wanted to write sitcoms. It did not seem hard, which is pretty funny. And I met a lot of people on different shows, and I used to go and sit and watch Newhart being shot all the time. Oh. And so since I was on Hill Street, and I know I'm going to be like killed for this, but I wasn't a fan of the show. So, I mean, I watched it once in a while, but I wasn't a big fan. But I was a big fan of different comedies. So I left there and I went to work on Alf, which was quite fun. That was a really fun experience. Yes, I worked on Alf with the puppet, and it was a blast. It was a blast. And I did that for a while until the show was canceled. And then I moved over and worked with Carol Burnett, not on the original show, on the second show she did called Carol and Company, with a whole bunch of other actors. And during that time, I met a woman that I had met before, actually, on Newhart, but I kind of got to know her really well. And she loved my writing. And at that time, it was really hard if you were a woman, especially to get into comedy. Hill Street Blues, I don't think when I was on it, had 0 women writers. And so, but Newhart had some women writers. Very few, but a couple. So this woman took me under her wing. She got me an agent, and she got me my first script, which was on a show called Major Dad with Gerald McRaney. And at that point, I quit my job, and I started just writing. And my agent got me more jobs. So I did Roseanne, I did Norm Macdonald, I did Burt Reynolds' Evening Shade. I did a show before Drew Carey was Drew Carey. On the Drew Carey show, I did a show with Drew Carey called The Good Life. And I did a bunch of pilots, and I did Sweet Valley High when I was pregnant, because it was the only show that would hire me because I was pretty pregnant. And I did the Wild Thornberrys also, which was animation, which was very different. Yeah. So I did a lot of different types of writing before I ever wrote books.
Wow. Okay, what was like a fun thing for you to do in the writing room, creating this content for these shows? Like, what was fun to do in that room? Was it the collaborative nature of working with other writers? Like, take us behind the scenes.
Sure. I loved every single thing about it. I loved when we wrote the scripts together, because there was so much camaraderie. And when you're in the writer's room, everything is hysterically funny. I mean, people will pitch things that have nothing to do with the show and can never end up on the show. It can be very dark humor, but it is funny. So you spend a lot of time laughing, which is what I really enjoyed the most. I think is just being around all these really funny people. I don't consider myself a really funny person in person, but I can do it on paper. and I can pitch stuff in a room, but I'm not like somebody who just walks around really fast cracking jokes. That's just not who I am. And some of these people were just really great. So I think that's what I miss the most, is that camaraderie in the room. Yeah. And then going to the table and watching the actors take words that you put down and then them bring them to life it's like wild. I just think it's like, it is glamorous to me. I know a lot of people say, oh, Hollywood's not glamorous, but to me, it's always been glamorous. For whatever reason, I grew up here and I always loved the studios.
There's a magic to it that I think for people who aren't in the room, who are watching it when it's done and complete and polished and released, we're just seeing the final product. We don't get to see all of the steps behind the scenes.
Right.
And for us, I think that's the magic part of it. We don't understand how it gets from an idea to a script to being, created. So that's interesting.
Exactly. And the actors bring so much to it because you write with the thought of them in your mind, all those characters, but until you hear it, you know whether it works or it doesn't work also.
How do you take that style of writing for television and all of that and transfer it over to your own personal journey as an author? What elements do you carry forward into your own work now?
Well, I didn't go directly from sitcoms to writing books.
Yeah.
I took time off, had my kids. I also became a nutritionist, so I did that for 10 years. And in that time, I started writing again. And what I wrote was a lot of personal essays with a lot of humor in them about my family and my parents and everybody in my life. And they went on to, most of them were published on Huffington Post. A few were on Maria Shriver's, what she had at the time, a website. And I just loved writing funny, kind of snarky things about my family or how I felt about my kids going off to college or, summer camp at the time or whatever it was. And that led me to going to take it was basically like a coaching class with somebody else where there was a woman running it and she would give a whole bunch of prompts and you would write to those prompts. And I found that when I wrote to those prompts, I was creating a character. And it started to come alive for me. And I realized this character was sort of taking on what I was going through in my life and what my friends were going through in their life, which was, our kids were now older and we had so much more time. And what were we going to do? Because getting back in the business just wasn't going to happen after all those years. The business had changed, it just was very different. And getting an agent would have been very difficult. What I had at the time, baby agent, was now almost running ICM. So, it was like, people had moved on, obviously.
Yeah.
So I just sort of started to create this book from just scenes. And that's kind of how my first book started.
Wow. Okay. All right. But there's also that creative side of being on a regular routine of writing, I guess, for television where you have to produce.
Yes.
You don't have the luxury of, I'll take 3 years to write this book, right? 3 years to write this script. You have a timed thing you have to meet.
But it's
right?
also only 30 pages.
Yeah, right. It's a totally different.
Yes, you are under a time crunch. And I always kind of liked the time crunch because when you get a time crunch, then you have to do it. And as an author, you can take a day off here or there. I usually try not to, but you can.
Okay. Yeah. So that I think that would help you as maybe a different differentiator between you and how you approach to somebody who doesn't have that background, where they've never written to a timeline or a due date, right? You just have the freedom to do whatever you want. You have that kind of in the back of your mind somewhere. There's a little bit of a clock ticking going, hey, we got to get this ready, Leslie. We got to move forward, right? So it's interesting that you have that in your background.
I do. And I'm very disciplined. My days are very disciplined in what I do. And I try to write every single day. I don't always write on the weekends because for me, the weekends is like, I just want to let my brain breathe.
Okay. All right. So you have multiple books. I'm on your website while we're chatting. Beautiful website, by the way. Link in the show notes, everybody. You got to go there. I'm seeing multiple books here. Which one is your first book that we talked about already? Which was the one that you started with?
That's After Happily Ever After. That's my very first book.
Okay.
And that's the one I didn't know anything about what I was doing because, like I said, going from 30 pages to 300 pages, and mapping that out and arcing the whole thing, that was really hard for me. It got easier as time went on for each book.
Tell us kind of the big idea for that book. What are we going to get as a reader for this one?
So that book, you mean like what's it about?
Yeah.
Oh, that book I wrote, and that was the one that I said that came out of all these prompts, which was, it's about a woman named Maggie who is 45 years old, and all of a sudden she realizes she gave up her great career to raise her daughter, her only daughter. Her daughter's about to go to college, and her husband, she doesn't know what he's going through, and the reader will find out, but he's going through something, so he's kind of distracted, and she realizes during this time also that her father is also going through some medical issues. And she's trying to figure out, what's the second half of my life? Like, what am I going to do now that my daughter's gone and I can't get back to my job? And a lot of my friends went through this and still going through it. And the sandwich generation is such a true thing, because you've got your elderly parents and you've got your kids and you're in the middle. And if you do take time off, which a lot of my friends did, to raise your kids, getting back and figuring out what are you going to do now is a huge thing. Mm-hmm. So that's what the first book is about. This woman, and there's a lot of humor in it. It's this woman basically trying to figure out what she's doing one blunder at a time. And her world's collapsing. So she has to make decisions, and she doesn't always make the best decisions.
Okay. So that'd be perfect for anyone in that sandwich generation dealing with another chapter. My podcast is Living the Next Chapter. So it kind of goes together with that, right?
Exactly.
There's an identity shift happening at that time of your life as well, right?
Absolutely.
I'm an empty nester. My kids are gone.
Yeah.
It's like, now what?
Same thing. Yeah.
Right.
And that's when I really started saying, okay, what career can I use the writing for? And that's when I started really writing books during all that time.
All right. When you look back at that book as your first book, for me, I'm a musician, and I like bands that release their first album because it took them a lifetime to write that album, right? It didn't happen in a few weeks. It's been a whole journey to get to that first. That first book as an author is kind of the sum total of everything you've had up to that point. And all the other books build on there. But what's makes you smile when you look back at the cover of that book or flip through it again and remember the journey of writing it? What makes you happy when you look at it again?
It makes me happy to see that I accomplished it, because lots of people say they're going to write a book and they don't. And I actually did do it. I love the cover because I think it expresses a lot. If anybody's looking at the website, they can see it. I think it expresses a lot about the character. And for me, that book was a lot of hard work. And I learned so much from writing it. That book from beginning of all the prompts and moving through, it was about 4.5 years from when I started at the class and then sort of moved through it and finally got it done and then published. It was about 4.5 years till it was published. And it just taught me so much about what I did wrong in the book. Just things like I had beta readers and things like that, but I didn't know how to outline a book at that time. It's a big process. And I knew the beginning, and I thought I knew the end, although the end changed. But the middle is the hardest part of any book. Anybody will tell you that when you hit the middle of a book, that's where you go, uh-oh. I have, half a book, and now we have to get to the end, but what's in the middle? So I think that book just taught me a lot about just working things through and being okay if it takes longer. I mean, my other books didn't, but it's okay.
Okay. All right. So that's good. So let's talk about your next book then. We've got many things to talk about. The reason I like doing this with authors is because when my listeners, they've said to me, Dave, when you find an author with more than one book, we love to fall in love with an author and follow their journey and all the different things they do. So the fact that you have multiple books to talk about, I kind of want to go over each of them a little bit, give us a little groundwork on them. But what was the second book then after Happily Ever After?
So the second book is about two women in their 30s. They don't know each other. One is married and Jewish, and one is Catholic and single. And they both end up pregnant. The married one has been trying for a long time and had a lot of issues. The single one is been looking for a guy to stick around, and she just happens to get pregnant with somebody that she thinks is going to stick around, and he doesn't. So they both meet in a support group when about right before their second trimester, they find out that there's something wrong with the babies. And they go to a support group and they bond in this support group and they help each other through it. And it's about their decision. They have to make a pretty big decision on whether they're going to continue the pregnancies. But it's also about the relationships with other people that they have. The married one, how it affects her and her husband, and the other one, how it affects her and her friends and what she's going through. There's also a little bit of a love story in it. And it's also got, all my books have humor. They all do. So even though the subject is really tough and there's some tough, heartbreaking scenes, I say I write heartbreaking books with humor. They're humorous, heartbreaking books, if that makes sense. Because I like to write something light. I don't want to just have somebody being depressed through the entire book. I want them to be like life. Life can be messy, but it can also be funny. You know, different things can happen and you can be laughing at something and crying the next. So that's what the second book is about. And that one was probably, even though it only took a year to write, it was about 28 years in the making, because I'm not anybody in the book, but I had similar issues, and so did a whole bunch of my friends. And so the title of the book came to me before the book came to me. It's called The Stories We Cannot Tell, and that's book is really truly women's fiction. My other books, I have tons of guys that read them, but this book is really for women who go through this. And it's a lot of us don't talk about what happened to us. And women sort of live in shame sometimes about different things that happen. And this book actually came out, or was about to come out, and Roe versus Wade was overturned. So the publisher really wanted to get it out quicker. And I was interviewed on NPR, at XM radio about it, because it is fiction, but it really deals with real life situation.
Wow. The timing for that then, right?
It was crazy, yeah.
Because you didn't know that when you started writing.
No,
this
I
would be
had
happening.
no idea. Exactly. No idea.
Wow. Talk a little bit about the fact, for an author that's listening, that your book can become a voice, a platform to talk about topics. And I like that you do write with a light touch to it. There's some humor like you talk about, but you're covering something that's really something that can get people's attention, right? In the news and everything. Using your book as a foundation to carry the conversation forward and help people, like, just kind of talk to the author that's listening, and they don't really have a concept of this might happen for their book like it happened for you. But how do you kind of continue writing the book and have it have a meaningful outcome at the end of it? How do you do that?
Well, first of all, I did not want the book to be political at all. It's really a compassionate look where people can say, whether you agree with what these women decide to do or not, you can at least understand why they do it and let them make their own decision. So it's really about just compassionate for whoever side is on. Yeah. And I wrote it's from the heart, but I wrote it where I knew that people would contact me and say, wow, this happened to me, or this happened to my friend, and this really hit me hard. And I did book clubs, and lots of people in these book clubs started to reveal stories that they went through. And in fact, I did a book club with, my mother is 88 years old, and she lives in kind of like a Sun City kind of place where you own your own place and there's a lot of people. And I always do her book clubs. And this book club was filled with women anywhere between 75 and 88. And they were telling each other all these things they went through with their pregnancies, or couldn't get pregnant, or a couple of them had illegal abortions at the time, because it was many, many years ago, and different things that happened to them. And everybody was just talking about this stuff that they never told anybody. And here this is, 75 years later for some of them, and they're talking about it. And that was my reason for writing the book, is to just get the conversation going, whatever side you're on. Because I don't care what side you're on. I just want people to understand that it's okay to not agree. And it's okay to just be compassionate to the person who has a different view than you do. Yeah. And the only thing the publisher made me put in the book that it's not political, but because the book takes place in Los Angeles, California, the publisher wanted me to just put one line in that one of the doctors says to one of the women is, well, you do have a choice because you live in California.
Okay.
And that was the only, it said something like the Supreme Court gave you the choice. So that was kind of the only thing that's even mentioned politically at all in the book.
Yeah.
But I'm really pleased with how many people have read it and have commented on it and been very happy that I wrote it. So that's really great.
I like the compassionate side to the story as well. Again, you said there's a little bit of light humor in there as well to kind of lighten it up, right?
The women, the way they talk to each other and the way the married couple talk and then the love story. Yeah, there's a lot of lightness to it too.
That compassionate side, that for me is illustrated by walking up to a building and someone holding the door for you. In that moment, they don't know who you are, what you think, how you show up in the world. They know nothing about what you believe. But in true, genuine human kindness, recognizing that someone else is out there in the world, just holding the door for somebody, right? So that's what I kind of get from your book is you're just holding the door for people.
Exactly.
Right.
And I write about women's issues, even though there's lots of relationship stuff in it. I write about different issues that women go through in their lives at different times. And this happens to be in their 30s and pregnant. And the first one happens to be 45 and, trying to figure out her life.
Yeah. Interesting. You're not going to get that in a 22-minute sitcom, right? So this is great that you can go down this path and create this.
Yeah,
story.
in a sitcom, you will get it maybe over an arc of a season. Everybody has their little issues, whatever those issues are. I actually, the episode that I'm thinking about on Roseanne that I wrote was when Darlene, one of the younger ones, loses her virginity. So that was really fun to be given that episode.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Okay. We'll have to find that somewhere on YouTube or somewhere, living somewhere. Everyone go see it. Yeah. Okay. So you have those two, and then you're not done. You're just going to keep writing. So tell us what's next. What did you do next?
So my third book just came out this May that just ended. And that book is about three sisters and their mother, and everything seems great with the mother. And they find out that she took her own life. And the sisters are obviously grieving, but they're also angry and they're confused as to why she did it. So they have no clue. They can't figure it out. So they move into her house and they all come together. They live in different places and they all leave their own lives. And they come together in her house and they start going through things. And through this journey, they find out there are major secrets that their mother was keeping. And they get these little clues and they end up going to Las Vegas for one of the clues. And they go to Brooklyn for one of the clues. And they kind of piece together things until they find out that the life that they're leading was not the life that they thought, that there's this big secret hanging over them. And they also come to the realization that this secret, even though they were very, very young when certain things happened and they don't remember, it really told them where their life was going to go. So it's about the decisions that they made in their life, how this secret affected them and they didn't even know it.
Interesting. That sounds like a television or a movie plot line.
I know,
right?
I'm hoping.
It does. It has a lot of curiosity to that.
Yeah.
Interesting. What do we need to know about these three girls at all? Can you give us any kind of background on what we need to know about them as their characters?
They're very, very different. I wanted to write something with sisters because I have two sisters, but I also wanted to make sure it was so different from my sisters. So none of them are me or my sisters.
Right.
And they've all read it, so they know. Yeah. The oldest sister is sober at the moment, but she's an alcoholic and she's got issues. The second daughter is been in a relationship with a man for many, many years that she should not be in, and she knows it, and she's a therapist, and she knows it, but she hasn't left the relationship. And the third daughter got married very young, like her mother did, and had 4 kids immediately. So she only dated one person. She met him in middle school, and that's the only person she dated, and she married him. So that's what her life is like. And she gave up her career to raise her kids. And they're all in their 30s.
Wow.
But I loved there's a lot of lightness in this book. And even though there's a suicide, it's not about their suicide. Even though they're grieving and going through all this, it's about their journey. And my sisters and I love to give each other a lot of crap. And we go back and forth. We're sarcastic. We're mean to each other. I mean, but we adore each other. We're all really close. And that's what I wanted to get across in the book. I wanted to make sure. And I was so happy because I edited this book like over and over again because I wanted to make sure everybody got that the sisters adore each other, even though they're saying mean things to each other at times. And thank goodness, that everybody got it. So because I had to make sure that there was love in there a lot. So, yeah.
A lot of family dynamics then here in play, right?
Dynamics. Yeah.
Yeah. Parenting and children's side, siblings. Mm-hmm. So who would you say would be an ideal reader for this book?
Anybody, honestly, I would say probably anybody 25 and up. Because, and men, I've had a number of men now read it. And I didn't know if they would or they wouldn't because the main characters, it's done from 4 points of view. So each daughter has her point of view and the mother's point of view. So you can go back in time and get the background of the mother and how she got to where she is. So the reader doesn't find out everything until the end. But the background is giving you little hints that might, be little breadcrumbs towards the end.
So each of these books seems completely unique and different from the others. Is that on purpose, that you're trying to write completely different stories that don't seem to have... Some of my authors come on, there's like a little thread that kind of ties everything they do together. They're not really writing in series, but everything kind of has this feeling or flow to what they do. These seem like standalone, completely different from each other.
Well,
is that intentional?
They're standalone, but they're not. Because... Each one, that's what I was saying before, each one is about women kind of finding themselves at some point in their life and their relationships and their family dynamics. They're all about family, every single one of them. It just depends on how you look at it. I mean, the first one is obviously about her family, her parents. The second one is about these two women that actually become family, but also the families on the either side. And the third one is about a family too, but it's also, they're all about women's issues at different times.
There you go.
That's kind of the thread that I always follow.
Okay. So a good starting point, should we go to the first book and start there, do you think, as a new reader coming to you?
You can go to any of them, whichever one sort of feels like, the first one is probably goes towards people who are closer to that age, like around 40 or something and up. The second one could go to anybody, I would say, over probably 30 and up. And the third one can go to anybody because the third one just is, there's that mystery kind of piece of it. So I would say anybody who's interested in any of those subjects, you can pick any of them up.
Okay. What are you doing going forward? The book's out, where we have them now available to us. As an author, how do you maintain your writing schedule? How do you keep being inspired? Can you give us a little bit behind the scenes of your own process and what may be coming down the road?
I am working on another book, on my fourth book. And at first I thought it was going to be more of a rom-com, and it kind of is, but kind of not, because there's also some other issues going on there. So I'm about halfway through that one. And my writing process is really, I get up in the morning, I immediately leave the house and I go to my workout class. I do that Monday through Friday. And then I come home, I get my coffee and I sit at my computer. And sometimes I am promoting and sometimes I'm writing. I always try to get the writing in, but sometimes there's, especially with a book that just came out in May, there's more promoting and podcasts and interviews and all that kind of stuff. My first book right now is in development for a movie, and so I can't talk about it because I'm under non-disclosure, but I can say that the script, the outline is being done, and then they're going to do the script by these script writers.
That's great.
Yeah, so I'm happy about that. I'm hoping the others get picked up. I don't know, what will happen. The second one is, obviously, the subject matter is kind of tough, and a lot of people don't want to touch it, which I understand. And they're scared of it. So I thought that would be for sure make a great movie, because I think if they read the book, they would see that. And the third one, I'm hoping. I would love for it to go somewhere. But that's pretty much what my writing routine is. I pretty much do that every single day.
Okay. And then as an author, who's inspiring you? Who's kind of a person that you look to and you admire what they're doing as an author? Has anybody kind of come to mind?
Well, Jennifer Weiner was sort of my first person that I really liked her books because they always dealt with some kind of issue.
Okay.
And I read a lot. I read everything. I don't just read my genre. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm not into science fiction or fantasy, but I read literary stuff and I read memoirs and I read all kinds of. I used to be really into I guess they weren't memoirs, but they were like biographies of like, George Burns and Lucille Ball and Judy Garland and all those people. So I like to read that kind of stuff too. But I would say Jennifer Weiner, Tara Jenkins Reid. I like her stuff a lot. I like Jojo Moyes. I like their stuff because they also use not as much humor, but lightness in the books. They're not usually so dense. I just read a book, though, that's more literary that just came out, which is great, called Broken Country. Have you heard of that?
No. I'll make note of that. I'll put a link to that.
It was really good. And so was All the Colors of the Dark, which was kind of a mystery, a little bit of a mystery, which was really good, too. So those are like the last two books that I read. I'm in a book club, so, a lot of times we get, they'll pick the books, but usually they're good.
Okay. And as an author, do you prefer to write on your own? Do you like to write in community with other authors? Like, how do you kind of approach that?
I've always written on my own. I know a lot of people that like get together on Zoom and they don't pay any attention to each other, but they write. I can be very distractible. So I can't write, I don't take my laptop and go to Starbucks because I will be listening to everybody's conversation and get nothing done. I guess if I wore headphones, maybe I'd be okay. But to some extent, I was told a long time ago, which actually works really well, is go to a Starbucks and just sit and listen to the way people talk. And it really does inform your dialogue. I mean, I had new dialogue from TV writing, so I already had that kind of, and I write a lot of dialogue because I think dialogue really creates a character more than description does. Because if you can hear the way somebody's talking, you get your, if you say like, oh, they're tall and blonde haired and blue eyed and whatever, okay, you have an imagination for what that is. But if you hear them talk, that can change everything about their looks, everything, by just getting into that character and hearing, oh, that character talks kind of like, this certain way that's a little more gruff or whatever that is. And I find that fascinating. So I used to just listen because men talk very differently than women. Men are much less words. And women will go on and on and on to say the same thing and will say in 5 words.
Right.
So you want your characters to talk like real people. So I really enjoy listening to how people talk. And that really helps my writing.
That's a great perspective. I like that. I haven't heard anybody talk about that on the show before.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Just to be an observer of people and watch how people interact with each other, and because it changes too, right? Over time. It
changes, and also an age. It changes on age of people, but also like when you write sitcoms, it's got to be really quick. I mean, in books, you could write somebody could talk for a page if you wanted that to. But you do learn how, because when you see actors acting out the words, you can see what words to cut and what makes a better joke and all of that too. So it's very helpful.
Yeah, because you don't get that from when you watch a sitcom or something on movies or TV. You don't get the fact, it doesn't feel like they're reading a script to you. They're living the character, right? Yeah. And they're adding a little bit here and there, kind of because they're talking over each other, and that's hard to script, right? There's a lot of that going on behind the scenes too.
Yeah, exactly. But I just think that with dialogue, I know a lot of authors don't write dialogue. People say, oh, dialogue's the scariest thing to do. And for me, that was the easiest because you don't describe things on TV. There's a prop guy and there's a designer and all that stuff. So you might say, they walk in the room and they're wearing a blue coat because that blue coat might mean something, but you don't do the description. The only time I had to do that was on the Wild Thornberrys. I had to really learn from them how to write because you do describe what these cartoon characters are doing. It's very different than anything else I'd ever done. And that was hard too. So I kind of got a combination of this description and this dialogue, which ended up in my books.
So if dialogue is relatively easier for you than maybe some other authors, what's relatively difficult for you that you had to work on then as an author?
A few things. One is in television, you have a budget, so you have certain scenes. I kept, in my first book especially, I was like, wait, they could go anywhere? What do you mean? It's like you can open up the world, but it's hard to get your mind there because you're always thinking about a budget. You're always thinking, okay, we have these 5 sets and maybe I can add a swing set over here, but mostly you got the 5 sets. I mean, in drama, they go on location, so it's a little different, but they stay wherever they are, like in Los Angeles. But in a book, you have to try to open up your mind and say, oh, well, today they can go play miniature golf, and tomorrow they can go to, Aruba. But it's that's the hardest thing for me, is to keep remembering that. And description isn't as easy for me. I have to really sit and think about description more than anything else. Dialogue, I could just write forever.
And then I guess translating the visual to written word, because you were doing the written word to visual, almost the opposite, right?
Exactly.
It's going in reverse order then.
Yes.
For you.
You have to get in your head and think, exactly what does this living room look like? And you have to be the set designer. I mean, in a weird way, it's great because you're the director, you're the set designer, you're the prop person and the costumer. But in another way, it's hard because you don't have somebody else working for you doing all of that. You have to figure out all that stuff yourself, and it has to be relayed in a way where whoever's reading it can see that in their mind.
So that theater of the mind, right?
Yeah.
We get handed that when we watch visually on TV or movies. It's there for us to partake, because then you can shape the story through the visuals. Right. You have to play with our personal theater of the mind as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's poets that write beautiful, literature because that's how they think. I don't think that way. I wasn't a poet, and I just don't think that way. So that part is harder for me.
Okay. When do you think we can expect something in the future from you? Is it going to take a few years? You have a timeline at all?
No, both of my other 2 books only took a year.
Okay.
But so this one, I figure it'll probably be a total of a year. I have been, because the other book, I was finished editing it, even though I started another book and I was going through all the promotion, all that stuff. This one, it probably could be quicker than it's going to be. It might even be quicker than a year, but it probably won't be just because I'm so busy with everything else.
Excellent. Well, it's nice to kind of anticipate what's coming in the future as well.
Yeah.
Again, because the readers are like, oh, I love this author. Please tell me there's something coming, because, they're just waiting for the next thing. They want to support you as well.
Yeah, which is so wonderful to have supportive readers. Oh my gosh. I think that's my very favorite thing about being an author, is the reviews when people are supportive, or they say, oh, I read your 3rd book, but I didn't know you had 2 others. I'm going back to read them all, which is wonderful.
What makes a helpful review for you when you read the words of a reader? What is something helpful that you like to see on those reviews?
Sometimes the reviewers will tell you something you didn't anticipate, that you didn't really know you put in. They'll read things into the book that I'm thinking like, wow, that's really fascinating. I never saw that. Those are my favorite. Or just when they say they get it. I think when they really, really get it, or I had quite a few people tell me in this 3rd book, they'd say, oh, my parents killed themselves and my siblings and I went through a lot of this.
Wow.
And that's like, wow, or I have a sibling and we talk to each other exactly how these sisters talk to each other. That's the stuff that I love. I love when people relate to the book more than just love it, just relate to the characters or the plot or something happened to them.
Right. And I think going back to your latest book, too, is when you're dealing with elderly parents who are on a long health journey, and it's an extended period of grief over many, many, many months or days, compared to the immediacy of that story, there's less time to prepare. And then the idea of going through all of the stuff in the drawers and cabinets, and there's stuff everywhere, and just you're pulling out all these memories, right? So for anybody that's kind of feeling that and that's been part of your journey, this could be a good companion book for you as well. Yeah,
I agree. And the 3rd book, I don't want to give too much. I mean, the 1st book, I'm sorry. I don't want to give too much away, but the Maggie is very close to her father. So when he starts to go all through all these things, and I went back. My father passed away 9 years ago, and before this book was completed. And he was the writer in the family, and he was super supportive of my career and came to every show. Whenever I did a show on television, he was sitting in the audience with my mom. They were both there. And I wish he could have read it. So what I did was, my father didn't have the same issues that this father has, but my father had medical issues, but not anything like this. And I went back and I changed some of the dialogue and some of the scenes between Maggie and her father to reflect my childhood and my relationship with my father. So that's the only character that I've ever written that was really, truly, once it was done, was more based on somebody.
Wow.
And, so that's really important to me when I read those scenes, because there's things in there from my childhood or things I talked to my dad about that are in that book. And I wish I dedicated the book to him, even though he was no longer alive.
Wow. Well, I'm sure he'd be very proud of all the things you were doing. He was still sitting in that front row.
He would
supporting you, right?
He would be. He'd be reading all my books. And now my mom, who, like I said, is 88, she takes my bookmarks. She hands them out to strangers. She is like, she sells my books more than anybody else, more than my ads. She goes on trips and she hands out everything. And she tells people all the time. So it's really nice. She's a big
Very
support.
good. Excellent. Send us to your website. We've been mentioning it many times in the conversation. It's beautiful, by the way. All the books are there for us to see and ways to connect with you. But send us to your website and kind of what should we expect when we get there?
Well, my website tells everything about what I've been doing and what I've done in the past. It's LeslieARasmussen.com, and the A is in there just because there was another Leslie Rasmussen that did some stuff that wasn't so good. And now I'm above her in Google, but at the time my book was going to come out, I had to put the A in there because I didn't want people to think she was me.
Okay.
So it's LeslieARasmussen.com. And they can see there's some YouTube things on there. I have a YouTube channel, and there's some of my previous podcasts on there, or interviews, and just a whole bunch of different things they can read. They can sign up for my newsletter, which I don't bug people, so I don't put it out that often, but it just tells people what's going on. They can also connect with me for their book clubs. I go to book clubs virtually. I go to book clubs in LA, which I love book clubs. So they can also, contact me and I will come to their book club.
Nice. And I see audiobooks are now available. Yay.
For the first 2 right now. Yes.
Good job. Excellent. Yeah. Well, yeah, I love an audiobook. You can take it with you and do other things. And
I'm too distractible. Sorry, I can't listen to them. I have to read a book.
You gotta have it.
I will be like thinking about all the other things I'm doing while I'm listening, and I'll have to keep repeating. So, no.
My hack is to get the audiobook and the paper book and have the audiobook read to me. I love it.
That's great. I can do that.
There you go. Excellent. Thank you so much, Leslie, for making time to be on the show. Thank you for taking us behind the scenes of some of our favorite TV shows and our favorite people in Hollywood and stuff as well. I really appreciate that. And for writing some great books that are really going to help a lot of great people as well.
Thank you. I loved being here. It was great talking to you.
Excellent. Everybody, all the information, as always, in the show notes for Leslie. Go grab the books. And you heard the power of a great review and what makes a great review from an author's perspective. Keep that in mind when you review Leslie's books. I know she'd love to hear your thoughts. Again, Leslie, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much again for pressing play. As you've heard, great guests on the show. And one thing you didn't hear in this conversation is what? What did you not hear? Think about it for a second. That's right. Not a single solitary commercial for a mattress or a supplement or a whatever you call it. No. Why? Because we don't want to break up the conversation with commercials. So the fact that you're still here means that you are a fan of the show, I'm assuming. So if you want to help to keep the podcast going and to make me feel really happy, all I really care about is coffee, okay? I just got to be honest. I love coffee. I'm drinking one right now. It's starting to get cold. I need to warm it up. Helping us with our Buy Me a Coffee link over at livingthenextchapter.com and also in the show notes helps kind of keep the lights on around here. Remember, I'm doing this for free. I'm paying for everything. So I would love to have a little coffee donation, even $5 kind of fills up my cup. And I would love to enjoy a coffee from you. So if you're interested, again, thank you for listening, but you can use our Buy Me a Coffee link and fill up the cup. Thanks for being here.